want to get into
So
the
what we're
conversation.
going to do is we're going to do a panel. What I want to do is I'm going to bring the panelists up to join me. We're going to sit on the stage. But oftentimes we do the panels and we don't have time to really like personally engage each other. And so really I want to do this panel a little bit differently, right? Because many of you all, there's some reason why you came to this workshop. And this is around how we move money for the movement, right? And so part of it is many of us have done this work. Okay. Oh. Hey girl, hey.
Hey, girl, hey.
So we're getting ready to talk about some money and how we move money for our vision, for our dream. This is a Black Girls Dream Conference, but we know that our dreams we need some resources to actually manifest those dreams. And so we've got some women that are going to come up and join me, and we're going to have a conversation around literally how do we move money and some of the elements of moving money. But more importantly, what I would like to do is I want to do it a little bit differently. I want us to be in conversation with each other. And so there's questions, some of the challenges. This isn't a pitch session, so I just want to put this out there. This ain't the time to pitch. This is time for us to really learn from each other and learn, like, if there's really a question around what am I doing wrong, or what do I need to do, or how I did this, that have that kind of engagement. That's what I like. Like, part of this whole piece came out of, like, it's this question: what is a Black girl's dream, right? And those of you that are sitting there, whether you are 21, whether you are 12, whether you are 68, whether you are 75, you still got a Black girl's dream in you. And some of those dreams, we're living in them, and we're trying to take them to the next level. Some of those dreams, we're really trying to get the resources to manifest them and actually have them actualized in the world. And some of those dreams, we've actually expanded. God has given us more insight for it. Like the one thing I thought I was going to do, now I really see it in an expanded way. And so part of why we wanted to have this particular workshop is we want to actually talk to the dreamers about how do we resource our dreams? How do we actually do this work together? And I think there's a lot of sharing, not just from the women who work in the funding space and the grant making space to share, but some of you all who have actually had to go through this process, that some of your learnings you can share as well. And so with that, given that, I'm going to ask these sisters to join me. I'm going to ask Monique Colson to join me. I'm looking for her. I was looking for her, baby, and I'm looking for her and calling her. She was like, I'm in the room looking at you, right? Monique runs, well, I'm going to let y'all introduce yourselves. But this sister has been, she and I work together. We have a big vision, and I'm going to let you talk about the big vision for the world that we have doing together. And she also leads grant makers for girls of color. But I'm also going to have Elaine Adora, who is, Eileen is in here, isn't she? Eileen, I was like, I saw her in white in a few minutes. Come on, sister. Eileen started a feminist fund in her community. I'm so proud of her and just so happy, just so grateful, sister, that you are here. I don't know if y'all know this, but outside of Africa, Brazil has the largest Black population in the world, right? And so I don't know if you all have been following it, but Black women have really been leading in that space. And some of them have actually given their lives. It's really intense and powerful, but I just want to raise that as well. Then we have my sister, Melinda Brown, who, just thank you, for being all the fabulousness that she is with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then I have my sister, Candy Mundon King. Yeah, do I say your middle name right? Mundon. I thought Mundon, right. That's my sister too. So Candy actually is at CARE. CARE is the largest humanitarian organization in the world supporting with a particular focus on women and girls, but they're the largest humanitarian organization in the world. And many of the women here have been connected, and if you're not connected, we want to make sure that you're connected. And so, and Ladarian Gillette, hello. Nice to meet you. I know. So, sister, I'm gonna jump right in, and I'm gonna let the women introduce themselves. And yep, you all start right there because I'm starting to sit on the end. Y'all want me in the middle? Okay, all right. Let me see these knees do. Damn, they worked. So I'm gonna start. I just want you all to give an introduction, how you introduce yourselves. in this work, I want people to know who you are, what you want them to know about you. I'm gonna start from my extreme, what is this? My left, y'all know my left and right hand. Is it working?
All right, hi everyone. My name is Ladarian Gillette. I am a native of the Midwest. I'm from Indiana originally, but I've been down here. I'm not going to tell you how many years, but I came down here for school. I attended Spelman College as an international studies major and then went to Emory and studied international law. So I'm currently at CARE. I work with Candy very closely. She's based in DC. I'm based here in Atlanta, but I'm a senior program manager for our U.S. programs team. So as Latasha said, CARE is a huge humanitarian aid organization. We just started working in the United States. About 5 years ago, I worked on that U.S. programs team. So I'm so excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you. I'm Candy Munton King, and outside of being a total fangirl for Latasha, I work at CARE. I am the Deputy Director for Strategic Partnerships, where I've spent the last 2 years making the connection between Black women in the United States and Black women from around the world. Understanding that together we can do so much within CARE and in other ways by being advocates for each other.
Hi everyone, my name is Melanie Brown, and also a huge fan of Latasha and Candy's as well. And I work at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I've been with the foundation for about 9 years, and I lead our public engagement and insights team. And kind of similar to Candy, we try to build bridges. We try to build U.S.-based support for our global issues. So what we're doing around global health, what we're doing around global development, and bringing the diaspora and conversations together so that our work can be more successful. So really excited for this conversation and excited to chat with you all.
Hello. I'm Aline Odara. I'm from Brazil. I'm the founder and now executive director of Fundo Agbara, or Agbara Fund, which is the first Brazilian fund for Black women. We fight for social economic justice, and I'm really glad to be here. I think it is a healing process. I got really emotional this morning. I have also my period, so I feel more emotional. And yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation. But don't ask me where the money is, because we are from the global south. We are looking for that too. And I'm here to figure out that. Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Monique Moore. Well, I used to be Monique Morris. People know me as Monique Morris. My name is Dr. Monique Koofson. I changed my last name. And I run Grantmakers for Girls of Color. I'm the author of 6 books, including Push Out and Charisma's Turn, which I think many of your young people have in their bags.
All of our girls.
And thank you for that support. And I am also the co-founder, along with Latasha, of the 1 Billion for Black Girls campaign. We run the Black Girl Freedom Fund at G4GC, and G4GC, for those who may not know, is one of the nation's leading philanthropic intermediary organizations that is exclusively resourcing young people who identify as people of color, and femme and girls. And so in doing our work, we also want to know where the money is. But we raise money to give away money. And so we raise money probably for about 300 plus organizations around the country, and continue to invest in a multitude of ways and engage girls in that conversation. And I'm a Spelman mom, so hey.
So I want to jump right in. This has been real, particularly there are different kinds of funding entities, right? And so a part of my role, what people don't know, this is our signature event, But the purpose of Southern Black Girls, the vision that I had around that was that we would be a funding entity. The idea is that God gave me a vision, this is just the truth, of $100 million, that over the next decade, we would raise $100 million. Part of how that came about was that there's a report put out by the Southern Rural Black Women's and Girls and Southern Black, I'm mixing it up with us, Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative. And it said that less than 1% of a $5 billion in philanthropic funds that come to the South, less than 1% go to women and girls. That's all women and girls. And so women and girls around the world, although we make the majority, are deeply, deeply underinvested and unfunded. And so part of what we wanted to do is disrupt that by changing and creating another model for philanthropy, and create a model that was actually community-centered and self-determined. So everything that has been attached to Southern Black Girls, from the inception to the evaluations to everything, has actually been done by Black women and girls in the South, because we wanted that model. I raise that because I do think that we've got multiple different kind of entities and different perspectives, right? We've got large funding institutions that are sometimes challenging to navigate in itself, right? We've got community-based organizations like yours that started out of a need, but you're also saying, I'm looked to fund, and I'm trying to figure out where the money is, right? We've got larger intermediaries that are really standing in that space of really trying to bridge this space between traditional institutional funders and intermediaries and groups that are on the ground doing the work, right? Then we've got a large humanitarian organization that as simple as, we're talking about necessities, not just like a grant fund, we're talking about food and water and medicine and shelter, right? That they're actually funding, like literally things to survive. And so I just wanted to give that context so that when we're asking the question, we're in conversation. But I just want to ask the first set of questions, and then I want to open it up. And so I'm going to start, I actually think I want to start with you, Monique. I really, Rap Makers for Girls of Color, you know, I was there at the beginning. Like when it first started, we were super, super excited because you are the right person. You are the right sister to lead it. And the work that you've done around your research around Black girls has laid the foundation. And so it's interesting because now it seems like in the last 6 years, maybe 7 years at the most, there's been this interest we've been seeing around girls, girls and women, and particularly, and I certainly credit you as contributing to that. But there's an elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is just recently, a few days ago, I think it's 2 days ago, the Supreme Court, not the Supreme Court, the federal court basically said that there was a fund called the Fearless Fund. That was a fund that was set up by Black women to fund Black women who were going in business. Now, the interesting thing about Black women, and you all may or may not know this, but in the United States, the women who have the demographics, the people who got the demographics that vote at higher rates percentage-wise than anybody else, any other constituency group in the country, is Black women. Also, the group in the United States, in terms of entrepreneurship, the people who, out of all white, Black, Asian, everything, that are starting more businesses in percentage-wise than anybody else in the country are Black women. The people who are actually entering college, right, than any other constituency group, like hear me now, are Black women, right? So here we are that America's told us, or our folks, we got to be educated. You need to get you a business, get you some education, right? And you got to vote. And you do those things, you're going to be on top. So if we're doing all of those things and we're the top at it, then why are economically and health outcomes we're at the bottom? There is something structurally wrong. And so I'm raising that because now, even in this little bit of shine that Black women have gotten, maybe, what is it, 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, not even 2 years, 2.5 years, now all of a sudden there's a backlash that we're feeling and experiencing in this nation around now we're being punished because we're claiming our womanhood and being Black, right? And so now you've got a fund that they're saying that no longer can this fund just have a focus on funding Black women. I would also say, and some of y'all know that there was some of the folks that were in here, I created an executive leadership course co-created it at Harvard. And it was interesting because in the language of it, that I could not put in the language that was for black women. In the language, I had to say that was women that worked with black women and girls. So it's as if we can't even fully, we're being punished for fully claiming who we are, and then folks are looking at the outcome, and I promise y'all, I met with I'll say this, and I'm gonna ask, and it's related to this question. I met with an extremely, extremely wealthy person. He's the, well, I ain't gonna say the exact, well, some of y'all. He's the 13th wealthiest person in the world. And I met with him about one of my other organizations. And in my conversation with him, he said to me, help me understand this. Why is there even a focus on black women? Y'all are doing real good. Y'all are voting, y'all started businesses, you going to school. Think of what it's saying. So there's this outward appearance that we are fine. We are carrying everything on our back. We saving democracy. We doing all of this stuff, right? Yet we are grossly in this. We started black girls, Southern black girls, because less than 1%, y'all ain't hear me, less than 1% are going to us. So given that, Monique, I just want to know, since, because I want you to take me through or help us to understand, has there been a shift in the philanthropic landscape, just in general, around the interest in funding black women or black girls, particularly black girls space? And if you've experienced that, which I know you have, what do you think is driving that?
Thank you. I'll try to do this quickly. I think a couple of things have shifted. One is, so let me start with what hasn't shifted. What has always been present is this understanding that black women are special. What has always been present is a recognition that black girls are special. The entrepreneurial spirit and engagement that you just described for women doesn't just appear once we become adults, right? This is the same spirit that we see inside hustle culture among our young folks. This is the same thing that people might recognize in some of the behaviors of girls, but they just don't articulate it as such. What we saw coming out of 2020 was that, and we knew that if we didn't absolutely say that we needed funding to go to black women and girls, it wasn't going to get there on its own. So yes, we came together, we started these organizations, we started these coalitions to try to engage in a mobilization to educate people about why the investment was necessary, do some mobilization work to try to move resources. I think we were initially very successful. People put us in their racial justice analysis, and because they didn't have a strong racial justice analysis that included a gender justice analysis, when they cut the racial justice analysis, they cut the black women.
That's right.
Okay? That's what happened. And many of the conversations that we're having, even about black women, don't reach black girls.
That's right.
So we're adultifying our own girls in our narratives about funding. In our narratives about who gets investment, who's worthy of investment, we're not engaging the rigor around the fact that the things that women are going to inherently be concerned for are not necessarily the same things that a 12-year-old is concerned about. And so a lot of the work that I've done around adultification and other segments of society, we're seeing it apply in our funding spaces as well. So we still have to do this kind of education, but what happened is with the legal challenges that we've seen, I'm gonna talk from girls for a second, with the efforts around ending affirmative action, with the reproductive rights issues, our girls are being hit in every possible direction around their well-being and our capacity to fund in these areas, because there hasn't been an explicit connection between the fact that our girls are impacted by every major social justice issue, every major racial justice issue, and every major gender justice issue. And so when they start making these cuts, when they start making these artificial separations around what is deserving of our resources, they're not again seeing black girls and younger black women in those spaces. Even with some of the large investments that have been made in women, which are extraordinary, there's not a comparable investment in girls. And so that is something that I think we readily need to critique, because people don't understand what's happening. Now, At G4GC, obviously we've been hit. My experience is, that a lot of funders who made promises really in 2020, who gave us verbal commitments about what their 10 years were gonna look like, with some of these legal challenges have decided they're not a priority anymore. And so for us, that means that this is a mobilization effort, this is an education effort, and it's also time for us to fight and band together to say, this is what you have said that you wanted to do. This is like your language. This is our money anyway. And so we need to go for it. And also, though, we need to engage in a robust effort to remind folks that this country doesn't really run without us. And so because you want to be in spaces to elevate and invest in these critical places, you have to invest in our critical spaces. So that's what we're experiencing, that's what our grantees are experiencing. One of the things that I'll offer is that part of how we come to remedy some of these things is to help folks understand too that there are legal protections that our grantees can make. We're putting together some tools for our grantees to help protect them from some of these intentional efforts to dismantle the very real progress that we were making over the past 3 years in increasing money that was going into our communities. So stay tuned for those kinds of things.
Thank you. Eileen, it's amazing to me that your fund is one of the first funds in the country. Here you have the most populous Afro population outside of Africa. And so I'm just wondering, because I think that in many of us, particularly those of us that work, not just internationally, but rural areas. I mean, I know from where I'm from, like, the resources are just not there. And so I'm wondering, how have you been received? How has your fund been received? What has been your biggest challenge in getting money to support your fund?
When we created Agbara, we had at that time no idea what philanthropy was. Even this word, it wasn't part of my vocabulary, philanthropy, because in Brazil there's no donation culture. Between the poor class, yes, because we are always, all the time helping each other in the communities, but not for the people with money. Oh, I'm sorry, I could speak much better in Portuguese. My vocabulary in English is it's really short, I'm sorry. We didn't know anything about philanthropy, what were the needs of philanthropy, and it was really intuitive for us to create. We didn't know what theory of change, strategic plan, measuring impact. We didn't know about anything, and nobody opened the door for us. But we entered. And we went to YouTube to learn how to do this, to the internet. And I think this institutional development was the most difficult thing we could do, and we did a lot of wrong things also, and we are learning. We are not even 4 years now, Agbara, and we are still learning with that. But I think the most difficult thing for us in Brazil to be the first fund, and we don't have this huge budget, but we are already an intermediate fund, is to face whiteness. Because it can be really, I don't know the best. And I think the most difficult thing is to be strong and to have my therapy, because I'm the one. And to take care of myself, to face it. And we are figuring out now that if our mind is not healthy, nobody works. because they are all the time improving their racism.
Oh,
And they are getting more and more sophisticated. And we need to watch all the time for it. So I think this is the worst thing in Brazil, because in Brazil there's a specific thing. People don't accept that the racism exists. We are trying to convince them that the racism exists. That's horrible. In the philanthropic sector, people accept already, but they don't take any responsibility of it.
That's right.
So, I think the worst thing for us is to have our mental health treated. Yeah.
Thank you, sister. Thank you. And you're excellent. Your English is excellent. So excellent. Melanie, you work for the Gates Foundation. So many of us think they got all the money, right? But I also know that we invited you. Let me say this seriously. We invited you not because of your role, just your role with Gates. You're a sister. And so, we also know that it can be very challenging to navigate in spaces, particularly in spaces where a lot of folks are pulling and not necessarily understand what you got to face, because you're still a black woman within an institution, right? And so I just want to ask you, have you seen changes in philanthropy, particularly as it relates to black women and black girls in particular? And I just want to know what's your take on it in terms of your assessment of what's happening.
Sure, and thank you for the invitation. I'll say I've been at Gates 9 years. I've been in philanthropy for about 16. So I work for another foundation. Actually, I see the ketchup shirt over there. So I worked for the Heinz family for about 8 years. And this shift and this kind of cycle in philanthropy, I remember when everyone was doing black men and boys, and that was the focus. And then everyone said, what about the girls? And then everyone did black girls. And then now, that's this kind of fickleness, quite frankly, of our ability to focus on something in the long term. I also want to talk about that I've seen philanthropy become more diverse. Part of the challenge is that there aren't enough of us with lived experiences in these spaces advocating for dollars. And then when we get there, we might be the only one. And you cannot quickly shift the strategy to focus on where you think it needs to be focused, or you have to do it, quite frankly, on the side. So it's something that you could give money to, but it's not where the bulk of the money is going. And so you're constantly fighting to give if it's black men and boys, if it's black girls, whatever it might be, a fraction of the resources that the philanthropy has. And I've seen this across the sector. So if you think they've got hundreds of millions of dollars and billions of dollars, surely we can get pennies. That's what you're getting, is pennies. Because it is so hard often to make the case. And then when the case is made, there are certainly foundations who have led on women and girls and black women and girls in specifically, they tend to not stay in that space for a long time. And so the money is fleeting. And I think what we're seeing right now, and so a couple of things I want to respond to, but quickly, you were talking about strategic plans and theories of change and metrics and all that stuff. And for me, I try to support my grantees in having all of that tight. I need your work if it's funding black girls, it has to be tighter than the other grants. And it's just the truth, right? The bar is higher. And so as funders, many of us who are black women funders inside of philanthropy, we try to help you get all those things because we know you can't just have, I've seen people come in with half of what some of my black grantees have to have.
Yep.
And it's just the truth. And then sometimes they come in, right? I don't want to always say that it's the bar stacked against us, because sometimes we don't have those things.
Right.
And we need to support each other to have them, right? There is a reality where everyone has to have certain metrics. And so if you know you don't quite have, you said you want this to be a dialogue, like if you know that you don't quite have what you need to get tight, ask someone who's running another organization, ask someone who is getting funding to say, can you help me get, I know what we're doing, and I know what we're doing is having impact. Can you help me articulate that? Put that in, philanthropoid language, foundationese, so that I can get access to the resources that you have. So it's I think, a conversation that Black grant seekers and Black funders need to have. And ABFE, which is the Association for Black Foundation Executives, a couple years ago, probably more like 10 years ago now, switched to a conversation, not just a collective of Black funders, but a conversation between, in a gathering that they do annually between Black funders and Black grant seekers, because we need to understand what we're both up against. There's so much more to say, but just the coordinated effort of, what has happened politically over the last few years is that courts have been stacked. And so these fights are really just beginning, because the judges have been put in place to tear at the appeals level and at the Supreme Court level to tear these things down. So I would just say, for all of us, for myself included, that we need to buckle up.
Can I say something about that? So let me put on another hat real quick. So in my other 10 minutes of the day that I have, I'm also an elected official in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the heart of the Confederacy. And when I hear about the Fearless Fund, I think back to the 1902 convention in the Commonwealth of Virginia. You can go through and you can read the transcript, and they're saying we need to put poll taxes. But one person said, you can't do a poll tax, that's not enough. They'll go to their churches, they'll go to their communities, they'll raise the money. They knew then that we can't be exterminated, that they may use the system to have a few wins, but we'll still be here when the dust settles, and we'll find another way. And you fast forward now, and that same Commonwealth has its Black speaker. It has a Black man and a Black woman, the top budget leaders in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So those people who were writing that story of figuring out ways, we're still here, and we'll still be here. So as much as they try with the Fearless Fund and all these other things, history is on our side.
And while you're there, I do want, a few weeks ago, several of us, because of Candy, were a part of her sororities. They had a Delta's Day at the Capitol. And one of the things that you said and you shared, and it struck with me, about the role of Black women in terms of international policy. That part of the U.S. actually is one of the largest in terms of, I think they're still one of the largest, right? In terms of humanitarian aid and policy. And we have a particular role because in terms of the continent, like who literally making sure that African women throughout the diaspora are taken care of, there's a particular role. I want you to share that a little bit. Right.
Yeah. So I started at CARE about 2 years ago, and I had this amazing manager who sort of in the process, we're going through a review, and she's like, what would be your dream? And I'm like, oh, well, girl, let me tell you. My dream would be to bring together women of African descent in the U.S. to advocate for women of African descent all over the world. I live in one of the most diverse communities in the country. And so I've had the opportunity to meet Jacqueline and Nana and Beatrice and all of these women doing amazing things. But I had to spend time educating my colleagues about how powerful, how women come from different African countries and come to the U.S. and they are the backbone of our healthcare system. Go to any hospital and you see people from Ghana, Nigeria, other countries serving. our businesses, all of the things I said, they are power brokers and they have a heart for what we do. We need to engage them. And I had a manager who was so supportive and said, let's pitch it and let's build something. And so we built a partnership, and it led to my beloved sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Yes.
Soror. Hey, soror. So I went, yeah, that's my tribe. I went to my sorority president, and everyone knows Delta is the largest organization of black women in the world. And I went to my president and I said, you know, we've been doing this work.
I heard that little dig. Y'all heard that little dig. Y'all heard that little dig.
Just the largest. But but
Where my AKAs up here?
I love AKAs. Listen, I love y'all too.
See what you started.
See what I started? So let me just say that former Secretary of HUD, Marsha Fudge, was a mentor to me. And you know something she taught me? I'm this before anything. So we lift each other. So, but all the Zetas, SG Rose, all the women. But I went to the president of Delta and I said, Delta is doing this amazing work in Kenya since 1956, building a maternity hospital, one of the first U.S. organizations to do this. We build water wells, we do all these things, but then we go to Capitol Hill and we don't say anything about our sisters who need support from people on Capitol Hill. So we've taken 7,000 Deltas to Capitol Hill to pass. Deltas passed the Global Food Security Act along with CARE. Deltas have made sure the humanitarian aid budget is not cut because our churches, whether you're in a sorority.
That amount that black women went to the Capitol and kept something from getting cut. What was that amount?
It was, I think that it was 11%, which is a big cut. But Deltas use their voice. Nothing happens in this country without black women. Every major movement of the last 100 years has been led by black women. Some of them in the front, some of them in the background making things happen, and we sometimes don't even know their stories. And so these women took their stories, they went to their members, they went to deep red Republican districts and said, I may not have voted for you, but you worked for me too. And made these people change their positions and support funding that is strictly, and we want to get very explicit, we're investing in women and girls because we know that when we invest in women and girls, they invest in other women and girls. The money never stops with them. But it took us understanding that all the time we go to church and we raise money, every church or mosque, you go and we raise money, we send money home. My neighbors for Ramadan, they send money home. And I'm telling them, you go and you vote, and now it's time for you to go and advocate. And so our partnership is really focused on taking all of the altruism and love that we have as a community and taking that to Capitol Hill to be a global voice. Now, the last thing I'll say is that you'll notice that in the last couple of years, DC has been changing for a long time, but you have more black women elected officials in DC stepping up and speaking out about global issues. And that's important too. We can't be so focused on home that we forget the rest of the world, because the maternal health crisis, if we find solutions for women in Senegal and Ghana and Nigeria, so less women are dying in childbirth, those solutions will help us too. And so the community has been so receptive to CARE and to this partnership. We know that it's only the beginning for us because we have the power, we have the tools, we know what we're doing, and we're taking that advocacy voice and using it for women and girls in Africa in particular.
Thank you. Ladarian, I want, since my understanding is the U.S. program is fairly new for CARE, right? It was a global, it's a global organization, but obviously there was something that was the impetus of the U.S. program started, and I want you just to share a little bit.
Sure. So I gave you all a little bit of background earlier about my background education-wise, right? It's international studies. So the way we typically do it here in the U.S. is that the U.S. is in charge of coming up with solutions for everybody else around the world, right? I think what happened is we finally woke up and said, maybe we don't know everything. Maybe we don't have all the solutions here. Maybe somebody else does, right? So CARE has been working, I think, how many countries we got now?
110.
110 now, and offices in probably about 70 of them, right, that already have been doing work in the communities. And we've been learning from them and trying to figure out if we can bring their solutions here to the United States. So eventually, CARE woke up and said, let's try it. Let's start a U.S. programs team. Let's see if we can adapt some of the programs from Ghana, from Nigeria, here in the United States and see if it works. So far, it's been, as you can imagine, after 5 years, a huge test case, right? Because the U.S., super, super diverse. I don't have to tell you all that. We're in a room right now full of black women, but when we go outside, even in Atlanta, it won't look like this room anymore, right? What ends up happening is that I think the United States gets a little nervous to sit back and say, we don't know how to fix this, so we got to go to Africa. They get nervous to say that out loud. But CARE, fortunately, is one of those organizations that's not that fearful. So we've taken a lot of their programs and adjusted them. So I have Nana, raise your hand. I got to go with CARE to Ghana and look at some programs they have around economic justice. They do a really cool program there. Has a very long name, so I won't go into it, but it's where members in the community, typically women, come together and they save collectively. And right? And I see you laughing because it's something that's like, it's been done for so long. And the susus on the West Coast, if you go over to Eritrea, Ethiopia, they're called like ACOs. So it comes with a different name, right? But here in the United States, it's something we've never thought about doing because we have banks. But we know how our bank system is here, right? It's a whole nother monster that you deal with. But I got to go to Ghana and I got to see 6 or 7 different women groups coming together, saving collectively, and then going back to that group and being able to pull money out as a loan for school needs for their children, for seeds for their farm, right? Different things like that for any of their businesses they were starting up. They were able to do that with typically 0 to little interest, right? Paying the group back. So is that something we could have work here? Potentially, right? It is. Would it have to look different? More than so, yeah, it probably has to, because we know here in the United States, how many people call their mom or dad or brothers, sisters, and tell them how much is in their bank account? Nobody. Not typical, right? I see one hand kind of sort of.
Unless you ain't got none, and then you call and tell them.
Then you call because you need help, right? But we don't talk about it very often. I see Malika, raise your hand. Malika actually worked with us when we first started on this program to figure out what a training program could look like for women here in the U.S. And there was a lot of learnings that came from it. Some good, some bad, right? A lot of adaptation that has to happen, but I am happy to say that program started with Malika helping us as a consultant back in like 2019, right before the pandemic. We've done a few iterations of this community savings program, which we call Community Trust now. You can imagine why we changed the name from the name that it had overseas, but it became called Community Trust. We are piloting it again for maybe the 4th time, Malika, so just be ready for a phone call from me. We'll be doing it again with women in Houston. So it's gonna look a little different there as compared to here in Atlanta, but we're gonna keep trying. We're gonna keep trying because there are other countries out there in the world that have figured out a way to help women elevate themselves economically, and clearly it's working there, and we have to figure out a way to make it work here. So that's what CARE's been doing. I'll add a short piece here too. One of the programs I'm super excited about outside of the economic piece is Black maternal health. That has been something I think that's up on the news, very, very high up on the news every day. We're in the South, it's particularly bad in the South as well. CARE is looking to get into that issue as well, and one of our partners would be Morehouse School of Medicine. So Candy talked a little bit about the importance of having leaders kind of in the right place. It's important for leaders, everybody in this room, right, is a leader in their own way, to get into spaces where you can make decisions, right? We happen to have the right leaders at CARE and Morehouse School of Medicine at the exact same time where they can make that decision happen and say we need a program and we'll help each other launch this program. There are a few African countries that already do something similar around this issue, and they use community health workers to kind of be that in-between gap between getting to the hospital and the women. We don't have that here in the U.S., right? We have doulas, we have midwives, but they're not pushed very much. People don't know about them unless you happen to know a friend who used one or you did a little research, but typically people don't know about that. And then helping people navigate through our crazy healthcare system, which even if you have health insurance here, is still a mess. Like, I get a bill every day from a hospital. I'm like, what is this? How do I navigate this bill? Where did this come from? Right? So we're taking that model they're doing in some of the African countries and adapting it here to the United States. It's gonna be tricky because we have healthcare systems that are put in place for a very specific reason for certain people and not for others, right? And we have to figure out how to get through that in our political climate, which is going to be difficult, but it's not going to stop us. And we're leaning on some of our partners, our big foundation partners, to help kind of join the cause with us, along with our education partners like Morehouse School of Medicine, to really lift up some of the possible solutions that could happen here.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you all. I want to open it up. I think part of the piece too, y'all, is that, and part of it is that there are practices in our community that we've allowed other people to say they're not legitimate. Right, because the truth of the matter is we ain't call it a susu. My grandmother used to call it they used to have a Christmas club, they used to have an ASU, a birthday club, or a funeral, right? Or even foot wash. The folk from Alabama, y'all know, right? The foot washes actually started as a burial club to do collective money. And so some way in this space in America, we've adopted this model of independent wealth, and it became a very individual, and we moved away from this kind of collective wealth model, which is actually impacting us, because we've always funded our own stuff, right? We always built our own hospitals. Y'all know, I mean, in Tulsa, y'all think white folks was funding them, doing that? So there is a history of us having these models, but oftentimes we were actually punished. I remember in my 20s working at 21st Century, and I put all of the work that we were doing, and we did not get a grant because the funder thought we were lying because we said we were doing this work with this amount of money. They hadn't even given us the money, I promise you. And I learned from that day that I was like, you just can't tell folk everything, right? I didn't know that at the time, right? Because I'm like, this is what we doing, and they was like, there's no way you're doing this with this amount of money. So we were actually punished. So what I want to do is I want to open it up for questions, and then what I want us to do, and I'm going to ask you all, please, this is not a pitch session. I want to put that in the space, right? I want this to be a learning and a sharing. All the sisters up here are coming to actually to share, like give advice and our experience around that. So with that, I'm going to ask, I saw, Cynthia, you had a question. I saw 3 questions over here. I actually saw her hand first, really, Cynthia, and then I'll come right back to you if that's okay. Because she raised her hand before I started talking. So I'm sorry, sister, I wasn't overlooking you. Okay.
No problem whatsoever. Good afternoon, Queens. How is each and every person in here today? Good. Wonderful, wonderful. I was a tad bit late, but I got here in time to gather some of that information. I have a great sense of appreciation and excitement, and on the flip side, I have a small sense of disappointment because the sister here, and I apologize, I didn't catch everyone's name, but it is so difficult, I found personally, to be a grassroots starter for something, because I found that when I've reached out to sisters, not you all, because now we're in an international space, but just sisters I know, I tried to start in 2019 a women's group, and I asked some sisters, I said, let's just save $33. $33 a month. And when the day came to meet or to come to my house, you know, we had so many excuses. We full of so many excuses. Sometimes it's not even the money. We always saying money. If we had the money, what if we just maintain what we already have first? It seems as though we become so diluted with, and I'm sorry if I'm going too long.
No, because I want to make sure you got a question, but I do want to respond to that too. Because everything you're saying, I saw all kind of nods. Everybody's experienced that, and I want to share something related to that. But I want to make sure if you have a question too. I don't want to cut you off.
Yes, I do. How could we, even with the savings, the club I was trying to start, and even with the maternal crisis, in 2018, I was pregnant. And I had to make a very difficult decision to terminate my pregnancy. And I'm not ashamed about it, because these things that we're talking about, we really don't talk about. We can say it, but then we'll go and, girl, you know what she said? I'm not ashamed. We need to talk about this with each other, because everybody in here has a womb. So for my womb, for the welfare of my baby, I had to terminate. I couldn't even take care of myself. So, and I know, and that was the first time I had 2 children prior to this, and I promise I'm going to get on with the question. But when I remember sitting in UAB, and this Calk lady, no offense, but I call us Hebrew, call them Calk, but we all God's children. But anyway, there was a lady who was the opposite hue of me across the desk, giving me all these options. Well, we can come pick you up and take you to the hospital. I just felt so welfare-ish. I felt so just down and out, because I was at a time, I said, Lord, I could be stronger than this. I could be stronger than this. You didn't put us as women to go through these things and have so many other issues attacking us. There's no way we can nurture a child and we can't nurture our brains. We can't nurture ourselves. So my question is, what solution can we come up with where we have passionate people like us? We don't necessarily know each other, but those who are not afraid to talk about something and come up with a resolution. What is that we can do? I'm not familiar with safe, with care.
So
Okay.
So I'm going to share one, Sister, thank you. Thank you for having the courage and clarity to share your truth. So we're grateful for you, and we hold you in this space and what you share with us as sacred. What I want to say, there's a couple of things I want to say. Okay, I didn't know. I'm being a sister girl right now. I'm black. I'm a woman. We having real talk. Sometimes when God has given us a vision for something, you have to see the vision through, and sometimes it's by yourself. And it's so hard, right? It's so hard, right? Southern black girls, we seeing this right now, but I can tell you, Chauncey will tell you that when I would go and pick her up, and I would have $10, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay for gas and get me something to eat. But we're going to go to the dollar menu and get something to eat. I didn't have any money, but I was doing really this same work, but at a much smaller scale, because I think I was making $11,000 a year working with the organization, 21st Century, and then I started making $15,000. I was rich then, right? So I didn't have the resources, the disposable resources at the time, but I did have something to anchor me, and I had the vision and to anchor me. And so sometimes the people closest to you are not feeding into your vision, not because I just want you to hear me, not because there's something wrong with you or they don't want to support you. They don't believe that, they don't see it for themselves. They don't believe it's possible because their own hope has been extinguished. Right? I'm not trying to be preachy, but there's a Bible verse where it says that whether you take it literally or just as figuratively, there's a Bible verse that talks about when Jesus was in his hometown, that because the people didn't believe, he couldn't work a miracle. So however you take that, even if you take that metaphorically, right? And I'm not raising this in a religious context. I'm raising it is hard to seed something when people around you don't believe. So sometimes you got to treat it like a precious jewel, and only literally that there's and hold it and birth it with other people that will believe, because what they will do is start getting you to not believe, right? And so you will start believing, don't nobody want to support me. No, there's a whole bunch of sisters that want to support and want to do that and want somebody to lead that. It just takes time. That the vision itself is about when is the timing right for you to find the right people. And so I don't want to be preachy around it. I'm just saying, because really the vision, y'all, I wanted to have this conversation about money. The vision never starts with money. And even when you start a project with money, if the only reason why you're starting it with money, it will not sustain. It starts with a vision and a belief. And the vision, as long as you can hold the belief in the vision, and literally, I got 3 points, and I want other sisters, they want to weigh in, but I got 3 points. One, it requires a belief in a vision. That is, if it scares you, good. It's supposed to scare you, right? You're supposed to have a vision. I got a vision. Like, I got a vision just 2 months ago. I was trying to figure out how we was going to come up with this money for this conference, right? But I got the audacity to say we're going to get $100 million. Now, I don't know where it's going to come from, but we're going to get $100 million and give it out. I'm declaring that. That is going to happen, right? And so I'm saying that because even this vision, we started just with a conversation. I was working a whole nother job, right? I wasn't even, it was actually because of Judge Hatchett. That's a whole nother longer story. That said you're responsible for the vision. So I'm saying that to you, that in the space, timing, sisters, timing, relationships matter. Are we building relationships? And let me say this: if you come to folks and you're building relationship with them just because you want something for them, it is a problem. So sometimes funders are not feeling us because we're coming to them. How many folks y'all think ask them for money all day? How many folks y'all see Melanie and was like, ooh, I know I'm gonna be friends and nice with her?
It's constant. Candy. Always asking for money. But let me say this thing, and what's so important about what you're saying, Latasha, is that people think because they are doing something that is important to them, they have the vision for it, that we are supposed to give them money, and that's not how we think about our role. We do not run a charity. Philanthropy is not charity, it's investment. It's investment on the goals that we are trying to achieve. And we want to know, how can you help us achieve our goals? You come to us asking for money, we're looking for you to help us do what we're trying to see happen in the world. So learn what we're trying to do. The onus is on you. I know it feels like everything is on you, but I'm telling you, the people who are most successful have read our website, they've figured out what we care about, they speak to us back in our language, and they show us how the work that they're doing with Black women and girls, with whatever group, helps us achieve our goals. That's who gets the resources. It's an investment. So ask yourself, are you investable? If you had $1 million to give, or in the sense of the Gates Foundation, $9 billion with a B, if you had $9 billion, would you invest in yourself? Over the organization that's down the street from you? And if you can't say yes, and maybe you would, that's right, great, excellent, then how do you present yourself in a way to show why you are the investable organization?
The other thing is when we think about resourcing, so we talked about vision and we talked about presentation and alignment of values and all that stuff. But the other thing is to recognize the resources we have. Like, there's a reason that folks think there's a reason we do a lot with a little.
Right.
And there's a reason we've been able to do a lot with $33, right? And part of that is the relationship, but also that is about the robust ways that we think about resourcing among Black women. And a lot of times we don't quantify that, or we don't capture that in how we are talking about our work. We have a colleague, a deep friend who runs Girls for Gender Equity, Joanne Smith. She always has this little tagline that she'll say, "We got us," right? So when we got us, what does that mean, right? We always got us. We can call. At G4GC, we have a phrase around using our grandmother's philanthropy as a strategy. Instead of thinking about, Mr. Gates' philanthropy, we think about grandma's philanthropy. What does that look like? How does that differ? And also, how does that align? And so in thinking about...
Gates philanthropy will not save us.
Exactly. But also, our grandmama did save us. Because our grandmama saved herself, right? And if we think about philanthropy as this extension of our community's way of taking care of ourselves, then we are able to be much more expansive in how we articulate what it is that we do, and we can situate what we do in the language and in the artificial columns that sometimes exist when we're trying to show that we are worthy of investment. So I want to say that because a lot of times the work that we are doing, especially when we're talking about girls, Black girls, who are occupying so many different spaces but often marginalized from those articulated funding streams, it's important for us to then say, like, this is how our communities got us. This is how the girls got themselves. This is how they're moving and telling their stories. This is how they relate to the democracy conversation if they're hair braiding. This is how this is connected, because this is how we are seeing our wellness. This is how we are articulating our well-being. And then we're able to make those cases in ways that matter.
So I saw Cynthia's hand. I hope y'all caught what Melody said. There's a distinction between charity and investment. And in an investment, people they have a particular already set goal, and they're looking for partners to help them reach their goal. And, right, okay.
Can I add something?
Yes,
Really quick. And we need to be convinced that we are building technology all the time. And the best technology. As I used to say in Brazil, I'm not in my favela, which is ghetto, waiting to be shoot.
Right.
I'm thinking all the time how to improve my environment. So how we convince them we need to invest in communication. And we are thinking about only now, 5 years after Agbari started, about communication, how we can go to our grandma, because they are storytellers. We have this technology with us. We are oral people. And how can we sell what we do, this so precious technology, in the best way? How can we tell it better, you know? And we really need to, and we have some other urgencies. We need to pay salaries, we need to pay the rent, we need to pay everything in our organization, but we need to reserve also resources to communication. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, sir. And then I saw you, sister.
Okay. I want to give thanks to all of you. And my questions, I have specific questions. Is it possible for us to affirm and acknowledge us in the sacred space as a university without walls? Point one. Is it possible for us within this university to focus on all the treasures and gifts that we've articulated this morning in terms of competency, right? Is it possible for us, for you all who are in these spaces, for us to acknowledge others who are not in this space, speaking of not just money, but wealth? Is it possible for us to acknowledge indigenous way of being that has worked to redefine and shift the paradigm, right? Where we are not poor, we change our language. Can we change our language? I have people coming to Belize who don't look like you, from MIT, from all over. I won't list the names, right? I want to see you, and we can align. Is it possible for us to align? Is it possible for us to develop our own bank? Is it possible for us to develop our own embassies?
Thank you for that, and I'm glad you mentioned Belize. One of the things in our partnerships with CARE that we're really working with Black women in the U.S. is recognizing and investing and in supporting Black women in, don't need to switch, but investing in and supporting women throughout the diaspora, but especially in Central and South America. We took a trip to Guatemala and met Black folks there who said, people who've come to help us have never looked like you. So we are building those connections here, and we have to continue to grow them. And it's gonna be a locally and globally connected conversation is going to start with us reaching out to the Latina communities in our own communities, to our, especially darker skinned sisters who often feel left out or disconnected within the Latino community, and reaching out here and building those. Because one of the things that I want to say is that the superpower, if you are leading an organization in your community in the U.S., the superpower that you have is building networks and creating coalitions. Yes. And so when I go beg Melanie for money, it's because I'm all the time. But when I come to her, it is because I'm saying, I found this coalition that can create this result.
That's right.
And so we have to start building those coalitions, and it's already started. And so we are getting there, especially when it comes to looking across the African diaspora.
And so, since we don't have a lot of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the sisters to ask their questions, and then I want us to kind of respond to them. So, I saw Kumba, I saw you, sister, in the back with that beautiful hair. I saw you, and yes, okay. Oh.
Come here because of the sound. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tosha, for organizing this and having this conversation about money. One of the things really in this conversation that I'm looking at is how, as Black women and girls, we will make foundation like the Gate Foundation not needed anymore. This is my question.
Yes.
Because seriously, let's talk. We are philanthropes. We don't have billions now, but every single Black woman that I know is a philanthrope. The percentage of what we give compared to what we make, if the gay people would do that, the world would be a different world. This world would be a different. We are the first givers. We give our time, we give our money, we give our knowledge, we work for free, we do everything you can imagine. So to me, right now, for this conference, yes, we want the money of Gates and Care, but we want it not to be always there. We want it to gather us so that we can do away with them, so that we don't need them anymore. This woman, no, seriously, we see her like this. She's about investment. She's about making economic empowerment. And she knows where we can invest our money so we can make more money, so we give it to what we think we are the investors, so that we don't have to follow the plan of Gates. She said it. They have an investment, and we need to fit in it. Now we need to make the money so we do the investment, because we know where the investment needs to happen. Same thing, with CARE. Yes, it's an intermediary organization. I've been in this field for a while. I couldn't take CARE. I mean, my reconciliation with CARE comes from the fact that they start working in the US. Before that, I didn't want money from CARE. Because how are you going to leave my Black sisters in the US not having access to health care, and you come to Africa to try to help us? Unless you start with things here, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. So, but she said it. Black women in philanthropy need therapy. You all move in those places. I know it's hard, but we need to know why we are there and what we are about to do. You can move some change this world. Move those pennies. Help us figure out the way to get out of this cycle. We need to get out of the cycle, but we need you there to help us do it. Now, one last thing. Serious work. I mean, we can take care of ourselves most of the time. We do the things. There's nobody helping African women get out of economic poverty. They're doing it themselves. Those susus, the money, they are the one doing it themselves. It's not their government. It's no foundation. It's nobody. It's themselves doing it. We can take care of ourselves. You know what we can't take care of and that we need you on? We need you to help us against those federal judges.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's where we need you. We need you to work on making sure somebody will not wake up and say we can't do our own work. Like when we come together and say, okay, we put money, now we're going to invest on black women, that somebody won't get up, put a law to say now, because it's just all of you are all black, you shouldn't do that in this room. So serious resources are needed at strategic level to create the environment where we can work. Because if they left us alone, if nobody was attacking us, if we didn't have to defend ourselves every day, we would be at a different place. We know how to take care of ourselves. We do. So let's be really strategic. CARE, Gates, anybody, any black person, any black woman in there, we need you to help us at that level. That's what I need.
Thank you, Kuma. I saw the sister back here, and then I want to hear from you all.
Sure. I don't think I need a mic. Y'all can hear me?
Yes.
It's live stream.
Okay, cool. All right, cool. Hey, Latasha Arissa from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. So I am in Black Women in Philanthropy.
You're the reason why we have this conference.
And I do have therapy, thank God.
Hello.
But you know, I just wanted to say, right, like this is my first time meeting Latasha, and we are co-sponsors, and we are commensurate to Gate. We have billions as well, right? And I didn't need Latasha to send me some big grant application in order for us to say we're gonna give some money, right? Like literally, Lorraine Ramirez from Funders for Justice sent me an email, was like, hey, they need a gap, can you fill it? And it's like, yeah, because we can fill it, right? You know, but I say that to say that we can do philanthropy different, and we can do the philanthropy of our grandmothers, right? Like my grandmother, like I grew up poor in New York, and my grandmother will give me and the people that's around her the shirt off her back, right? My grandmother's house has always been an open house. Everybody comes to my grandmother's house, everybody that lives with my grandmother, right? And so I didn't meet, and my grandmother's from South Carolina, you know? And my people are from, my other grandmother's from Mississippi, my people are from the South, I'm a Southern New Yorker. And
you can come back too.
Thank you,
come on
thank
back.
you. Right, I'm saying that to say, like, I hear what you're saying too, right? And I think we are being pushed because we shouldn't be dictating strategy like within philanthropy. We need to be following strategy, and we need to be following people on the ground. We need to be responsive and flexible and agile. And because we have caused, not Arissa, but philanthropy has caused so much harm, right? And we are the products of racial capitalism. And so this is not our money. And so I'm not interested in creating a false sense of scarcity, because there's no scarcity here. You don't have to come down on me and like do an interview and do a 10-minute pitch. Like I believe you. I'm gonna be realistic because I want to be in right relationship with you about what I can and cannot do. But I don't want to be a white man, right? I don't want to operate in the same ways. And in my role, right? And I have a particular amount of power. Like I can say like I'm not going to ask Latasha 1,000 questions about this. She said she needs the money and I believe her. You know? And I think within Robert Johnson Foundation, like we are also doing a lot of work around like structural racism and all this other shit and like trying to get white folks together and trying to talk about our endowment and talk about reparations. Right, we're doing that work and that's deep and long and worthy work, but as Black people, we are inherently valuable. And I just wanted to name that here because I don't want us to be in a space where we feel like we gotta like be perfect. Like that is the trick of the devil and of racial capitalism. And so I just needed to name that because I don't care if y'all came up to me and asked me questions. I'm gonna tell y'all the truth about what's possible and what's not possible. And I'm also somebody that comes from an organizing background, like particularly for Black women and girls. And so like I just have a particular posture around abundance and around like capitalism because I'm always gonna talk about like the elephant in the room. And so thank you.
Thank you, Arissa. Thank you. And so,
I just want to say in response to that I also was, not that you're suggesting otherwise, but I also was speaking my truth about sitting in my organization and what is I'm able to do. That is by no means what anybody else is able to do. And I do fund Latasha, and I do fund Candy, and I do make sure that what they present to me, it's already right the way that it is. I just help them translate into what it needs to be done internally. And my colleague is here also from the foundation. And so working at Gates is maybe not the same as working at Robert Wood Johnson. We're not maybe ever going to have those conversations that y'all are having. So I love that y'all have sisters here from Gates, y'all have sisters here from Robert Wood Johnson, and like reach out to all of us and then let us help you navigate the realities of the organizations and institutions that we sit within.
Melanie helped us too, y'all. The two sisters, yes.
So
No. Yeah, yes, you got it. Okay, I think I can find you. That's why I'm sitting there looking. I was like, you sit down.
I got it.
Okay.
So you just mentioned reach out, and I know a lot of you in here. My question is, for some of us, we don't reach out because we don't want you to think we're reaching out for money. Like for me, I want to build a relationship. I want to learn from you because I'm a nurse practitioner. I got my doctoral degree, but I'm also trying to get into the global space because I want to give back to my people. Like she said, we're all philanthropists. Like I do a lot of things out of my pocket. You try to reach out to organizations. It's tough. And then we come to conferences and some people are really good at networking. Some of us, I'm like, they're just gonna think I want something. But I really want to learn. So for you guys, like, what is the best way to approach you so it doesn't come off as I need something from you, but I'm really trying to learn, to grow, to become you guys for the next generation. So what's the best way, you know?
Excellent question.
If you might just reach out.
And
because there are only so many of us Black
It ain't
folks
that many.
in philanthropy who are in positions like I lead a team, it sounds like you at Robert Johnson, so like we are, in charge of resources, we know each other. So if I can't do it, if there are too many hoops for you to jump through to get to Gates, I can connect you to another funder and say, and we meet every year. Actually, we've been to Belize, we've been to Honduras, we've been with the Garufuna, that's the group that I showed you those pictures earlier. Like we talk to each other, so use us to do some of that legwork for you. It is why we are organizers. We may not have all been organizers outside of philanthropy, but we are organizers inside of philanthropy. We are hacking the system in order to move resources. It may show up differently within each organization, but leverage where we are to help you make those connections. If I can't do it, I'll find somebody else who can.
And use this great app that Sean said. People have already sent me messages and I replied like, hey, this is my number, text me. But within the app, you can contact the speakers and anyone at the conference. And so I would highly suggest that.
The WOVA app. The WOVA app. You can, Or maybe it's Hoover. Is it Hoover? Okay. I'm over here saying it wrong. And actually I was there when they first launched it. I was a guinea pig. But okay, Hoover.
I want to add one quick thing to Jacqueline's question.
Yeah.
Because I will say I feel like I'm a little bit younger when I get into certain spaces around philanthropy, and I have the same type of feeling where I'm like, ooh, I don't know how to go up to this person. Even though I work for CARE, which is a huge organization, I still feel like, oh my gosh, I'm a little nervous. Be personable. you will be surprised how much people will tell you or like get to know you if you're just personable. I'm a huge TV movie buff. I've sat down with multiple people before and just talk about Orange is the New Black or this new show or Shonda Rhimes Bridgerton, and you connect on like a human level, and then later you can learn to connect on a professional level. But just be human. Like, don't go into it feeling like it's a professional thing, because we're all in this together.
That's a great point. My sister.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I think I know what Melanie and Candy are coming from, because I've been in this space at the international level of the UN all my life. I mean, my adult life. That's why I started, when I was in Washington after my master's degree in food security, I was just right at the World Bank and then UN. So I know that there are different agendas, geopolitics, international politics, but the mere fact that of being there, you can make a difference also. But my question here to both of you, and I know it's possible to navigate around it, is that everyone has talked about it. And I think the energy, and there's something that Latasha said that is very relevant to these conversations, that everything in life is timing. And the timing is here now. So my question is very simple and very, because we've tried it. Because when I left the UN to go back to Rwanda, they thought I was crazy. How do you go after the genocide? What are you, how can you leave? You've been all over the world. I said, I have to go and help my country, because when genocide happened, all of you were watching, and no one saved my people. And I was there living an international life. So out of guilt of being, I went back. And no one was giving money at that time. They were only giving money to refugees, to people who were almost dying. But to rebuild the country was difficult. So as we were saying, that is intentional, and you can start. If you want to do something, you start what you have. If it's $1 or $50, I took my pension. I left you and took my pension money and started the flower farm, and then this organization. So, and God has been good to me. So my ask is this: we are here, and this is a big organization. We're 1,500 here. The dream is 100 million. That is not even enough. That is a start. Can you, the philanthropists who are here and the organization, finance experts to help drive a strategy that we use this organization based here, that we do a strategy on investment fund. Investment fund. Probably don't call it the black women. We find a way to go around it. And we use them to do intermediation, because whether we like it or not, US is still the place, that's where the money is there. And for us Africans, most of the money that is in the world is coming from our continent. Yeah? So we all know that, but we have to play the game. Until we get that money. And that investment fund, it will be housed here. We fund, the knowledge is there. You ask me to find you 5, 6 experts, we find them. And they will fund them. And we will start the investment fund. We do intermediation, and we do digital finance.
Yes.
All right? Because it's already happening. Everyone has a cell phone. Everyone is using mobile money. For those who work in Africa, we know we're very advanced in that. But we can bring that to our sisters. So I want us to live here intentionally, saying that at least you tell us we can try. You give seed money to build that one. And then all those philanthropists who really want to have black people, including our own black philanthropists, they cannot help us because we don't have a vehicle. To take that money. So my ask to you, and you know that there is a big debate on localization from your organization. I'm part of that debate. I have to be honest. And we're saying, if you cannot leave it to us to do it, take your experts, take them back to your country. We don't need your money. So before they close all that, can we have that money come around and we use this organization? We create a wing for investment, and we start investing. Digital financing. No going saying no. We know how to do it. We can do intermediation. We have the people. We have their profiles. We have the peer pressure to pay back. All the studies done by the World Bank and anyone say 98% of the loans given to women pay back.
That's
I
right.
give you, I can write all that piece for you. So what I'm saying, let's just move. Let's just move and help us give the seed money. Let us start. Digital financing is not going to create any, because people think, oh, they are black women, they're not going to do it. So we don't need to, because my late father used to say, money doesn't like noise.
Yes.
So we don't want, and cite all the, they will not do it because we will be on the digital financing. They will not, if you cannot do it, we'll do it in Africa, because once you are registered with a central bank, you can do what you want in the world. Yes. So we can do that. So if you can help providing seed money to sit down, we have women who are in banking, in finance, and everywhere. We put them together and we can go. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. So one, I want to take that conversation. I want to put it in the parking in our garden, because part of even the international sisters that are here, that part of the reason why we actually wanted you all to be a part of this was not just for us to be a one. We want to vision with you. And so we're gonna have dinner in about an hour, if we can get up out of here, in about an hour. But I think it's so much to that, because I think that part of what we're learning is that when we kind of come together and use our vision and connect our vision up together, we can actually create and decide on the next step around that. There is a component of actually Southern Black Girls. I won't get into detail. I want Monique to speak. She wants to say something. There is a component. There were 4 funds that I envisioned. The first one is this, the Black Girl Dream Fund, which is a capacity building fund. We were very intentional. We funded over 200 organizations to help organizations build capacity, because the truth of the matter is what Melanie is saying, it's just real. Like if you don't have, if they will kick it out because they're looking for ways to kick it out, right? And so we need help. I can't even tell you how many program officers have sent my proposal back to me, particularly when I first started, to say this language, this ain't gonna work, right? For me, anyway, and so we need some help inside too, because they help us to tell us how to navigate what we're doing. But we also, to your point, we actually have to have a fund and a thinking around what we fund. And part of the 4th fund, there's a Black Girl Defense Fund that we've got a R&D fund. We've got a philanthropy partnership fund, and then there's a 4th fund, which was an investment fund, which was literally about innovation. It was an innovation fund, but we haven't had the capital yet to kick it off. I do want Monique to share, but that was literally the idea of what we want to do, is to create funding that was not outside the restraints of nonprofits, because that's a problem for us as well, that we want to get resources that we can actually make money. And so that 4th fund, I've not had the money yet for that, but that's actually one of the pieces, a part of the vision of this investment fund. So, but I would love to talk to sisters in this room that may be interested and help us to co-think about what that would look like. And then we've got a larger piece, which is a campaign that we've been doing. Monique, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'll just add, as part of the 1 Billion for Black Girls campaign and the work that we're doing at G4GC, we also have 4 funds. The Black Girl Freedom Fund is one of them, but we also recently launched a partnership with Second Youth Capital, and we are actively fundraising now for a $25 million investment fund that will invest in organizations and enterprises that are working and investing in areas that have been identified by Black girls as important to Black girls. So I want to say, like, a lot of the language here has been about women, but I want to bring us back to our girls and just say that we worked with them to identify 18 catalytic factors for investment, to engage in the rigor around the data, to do all those things so that when we go out and we fundraise for this work, it is not only going to speak the language of the investment world, but it is actually going to do exactly the things that Black girls want us to do. And those enterprises will be led by Black girls. And that money will move to create new donors, so we have our own pool of funding to be able to do the work we know we can do. That's what I meant when I was saying, we got us, and we're thinking about this, and there's alignment, because we're not the only one.
That's right.
You're not the only one.
That's right.
It's about building our community to say, there's enough for all of us to exist, and there's enough for all of us to come together to fill those gaps. 18 catalytic factors. That's at least 18 categories that we can say we're doing this kind of investment in. So we have the data available. You can go to our website and get it. There's a lot of it that's available in the public domain to help organize our thinking about this work.
Thank you, Monique. And so I saw 2 quick questions, and we got to wrap up. Do you have a question, Deborah? So if I can get the questions just back to back, Monica, I saw. Did you have something just back to back? Okay, you should. Okay. Well, hold on, because literally we're like 6 minutes after, and so I want to make sure that we give in the space what folks want, and then we can talk afterwards, because I'm quite sure we have all kind of, and we see this as an ongoing conversation. So this isn't we saying workshop, but you all have put so much on my mind in this space that we're gonna redesign this differently as we go forward.
Hello. So my question is more so. Hello, everyone. So I work with CARE, but I do have a question about doing this work in the space, in the current climate, where we just heard what happened with the venture capital the other day. How is that, I mean, in everything that we're talking about now, how does that decision that was made going to impact the work that we're all trying to do?
It's absolutely going to impact it, but the problem, so let me say, maybe I'm just gonna put my theory out here right quick, right? So there's a theory of, and the folks that work with me know I got this theory, like there's this idea of we've got to get our money and we don't need their money. I'm sorry, y'all, we built this country, that is our money. I'm just being honest. That's just my perspective. My perspective, not from a place of entitlement, because I don't necessarily believe anybody owes me anything in the context of just who I am or who they are. I am saying that I can actually trace the American economy down to the enslavement, the resale of Black bodies, of the exploitation of Black land, the extraction of Black folks from the continent of Africa, the extraction of resources. That's just real. That ain't no hyperbole, that is true, right? And so on some level, that's why when we're talking about reparations, those of us that support reparations, that's a real conversation. That's not something that's just kind of made up. But there's a reality that we live in right now, that institutional wealth is in the hands of a small group of people, of white men in particular, right? And as long as they control it, right, there's a methodology that we have to actually be able to navigate to at least get access to it. But I'm always in the back of my mind thinking about how I do the work that is in service of all of humanity. I believe that the liberation of Black folks. I say that to say there are 3 things I want us to think about in terms of the movement of money. And I'm so glad that Kumba raised this. Right, there are some practices that we are doing because you don't have the money that you really need. You are diminishing that is actually working. It got you here, like we're here. I want us to think, because we're in a capitalist system that tells us our success is measured by how much money we have, right? And so the truth of the matter is, many of us are doing this work, Cheryl Threadgill, that when you ain't got no money, those Bama kids is gonna meet. They gonna meet. Their kids gonna have what they need. You gonna bring them to a conference, hell or high water, right? Right. And so that is a resource. Like, what we have to do is we've got to really figure out how to align our strategies, right, together, so that because for us, there may be $10,000 might be a game changer for your foundation, right? For somebody, for some community. We got that. We can get 10,000. It's probably easier to get 10,000 in U.S. than it is in some other countries. And that's not saying around putting not the people, it's the structure of the countries. Yeah. And so I'm saying that because there's elements that we can do that and being in conversation with each other. So there are three things that I just want to say in terms of the movement of money. One, it does need to be connected to something real, authentic, and that is grounded in community. Right? You will not sustain if you are banking your work on group foundation money. I'm just being honest. You're not going to sustain. It's not going to work. So there has to be something that anchors that. There has to be a resource to anchor it. If the resource is not money, got to be people. Which it should be people anyway, because that's the only way that you're going to sustain it. Right? The second thing is, how many of us are tapping into our networks? Some of the sisters that went through, that know, and what we learned through our Harvard course, is that many of us have these networks, and we're really not tapping into our network because there's an alignment with my grant the OSF Foundation got this grant, right? But I don't know anybody there, right? But Deborah Scott does. So maybe I asked Deborah if she can introduce me to that person so it gives a space. Some of us need to do, if I said three things, in my opinion, I want to go through with you all giving advice. One, we need to map our networks. Map your network. Who do you know? What foundations you know, what people you know who have influence. Map it. Don't take it for granted. Map it. Secondly, are you clear in your vision? Because I'm going to say this. This is the truth. That sometimes we're doing this work and it's good work, that ain't enough. You have to have clarity. When I walk in a room and I ask for money, I'm real clear of what I'm asking my money for. Right? It's not just whatever. I'm real clear how it's going to be used. I'm real clear about what I need. Get clarity about what it is that you need. Get clarity about literally around what the vision is around that. The third thing is that you also need to be able to look at it from 10 years from now. Your work, if it's sustained 10 years from now, what does that look like? What does that look like? And then the fourth thing, this is going to be a hard thing. I'm going to use Atlanta as an example, and then I want to hear, we're going to wrap it up with my sisters. I was a consultant for the Ford Foundation a couple of years ago, and I came to Atlanta. This is before they started funding in Atlanta, and I met with all these foundations and I met with all these community groups, and they kept talking about how the Ford wouldn't give them no money, and how the Community Foundation of Atlanta would not give them any money, and such and such and such, and it was so bad, it was so hard, and every single organization I met with, I asked them, like, okay, well, when did you ask? Not a single organization had asked. In over 9 years. Not one. Somehow we think because we're doing work, it's going to just attract folks that really ain't trying to look for you to give you money for real. And we're going to get it. We don't ask. And so part of it is most of us have failed. I am a bad organizer. Because I have got my butt kicked, so I done lost so much, I done got slaughtered, I done got drugged in the street, right? It is all of my losses that actually have helped me become a better. I've put so many foundation grants in that I didn't get a dime for, because they were either poorly worded, or I didn't have the sophistication to know how to align it. Those are not rejections, y'all. We got to take that as learning lessons and tweak, right? And tweak that. So I'm saying that to say, how many of you all are actually literally making a list of knowing who you are going to ask? Like some of us are not doing that work. How many of y'all in here have organizations? How many of y'all have organizations that are serving black girls right now? Okay. How many of you all have budgets $1 million or more? How many of you have budgets under $500,000? How many of you all have budgets under $300,000? How many of you all have budgets under $100,000? How many of you all literally have a full-time grant writer? That says it all. That says it all, y'all. Right? And so how many of you all have relationships, if you be honest, relationships of people who are in the space that you simply have not wanted to ask, or afraid to ask, or just like, for whatever reason. that you all know you have relationships that you have not tapped into? How many of you all desire to have broader relationships in this space? Okay. So y'all I just took a survey. Y'all don't even know how I'm about to use this information. Right? Because we're going to have a whole nother track next time. Watch. We're going to solve this. So I'm going to end this. I want to end this. I wanted us up here to see who's in the room and who makes up the room. But I want to end this by, we have a room full of women who work with girls who want to figure out how to fund that work. And so I want to end real quickly with a lightning round rod of what's the best advice you can give them in this moment of trying to seek resources. And I'm going to start from there, and I'm gone down.
Yeah, I don't know if this is mostly around resources, but just in general, just coming from where I came from, education. All of y'all work with black girls, make sure they know where they came from. Because if they don't know where they came from, they don't know where they're going. So there's no reason that we should have black women in the United States who have never been to a country in Africa. Push them to go back to their roots. Push them to go into whatever passion they want to go into. But once you see the connection that you have with other countries, with other people within the diaspora, it's going to fuel you. It's going to fuel you in a way that you never imagined.
I have to take mine to make a quick public service announcement. CARE is an amazing organization. I wasn't there 75 years ago, but I'm here today. Our president and CEO is wholly committed to investing in partnerships with black women and girls because she knows that if you want something done, you want something changed, you're not going to do it without black women. So with that said, wave your hand, Patlin. I encourage you all to please see Patlin and join our CARE Advocacy Network. If you want to have a voice, if you want to have a say in where CARE goes next, we have an advocate network that I have spent the last year making sure reflects the diversity of the people who we want to serve. We need you in our network to help us determine how we show up, where we show up, and who we show up for.
I will say, I want to echo something you said about we're all philanthropists. Rich people do not own philanthropy. We're all philanthropists. I will make my contact information available for anyone who wants to chat. I will be honest, we don't fund the size of organizations that most people raise their hands. So don't say, well, you said I could reach out to you and you don't give me there's no money. That's not the size of organization that we invest in. Maybe one person raised their hand that their budget is over $1 million. That is more, we fund very big entities. So I just want to be honest about that. But to my point about, I think to your point about meet funders, make the ask. We know you're going to ask us for money. It's what we do. And to your point, it's not our money. We know. I know my last name's not Gates, and it wasn't Hines when I was at Hines, right? We are to be stewards of the resources, but reach out to us. And please reach out to me. My name is Melanie Brown, melanie.brown@gatesfoundation.org. Anyone at Gates has that same first name dot last name @gatesfoundation.org.
I don't know if y'all missed that, but she's telling you something. She just told you something. Pay attention. Okay.
I think we need to go, we need to think, I'm sorry, my English is bad. The capitalism, it pushes us to be in our own narratives. And also we are in a hurry all the time, taking care about a lot of things, our organization, our personal lives, and we forgot about collective. And that's why we in Agbada Fund, we take care of sharing all our knowledge with the smallest organizations. And we need to do this we need to think of us as a people, as a community. And I think, and when some foundation asks us for the counterpart, as you said, We just need to answer that the counterpart was paid in the last 500 years.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it.
I'll just offer a couple of things. One is visit g4gc.org. That's a quick, there's a lot of stuff on there about opportunities for girls to be involved in conversations, g4gc.org. We have fellowships and other ways that young people inform our grant-making process and are actively part of that process. But know your data. I want to just talk data for a second. Know your data, be able to talk about your data in different ways. And data not just being about the numbers of people that you're reaching, but being about how you are fully resourcing in our communities of Black girls and young women. So I think a lot of times when folks, at least when they come to G4GC and they kind of talk about their community and we talk broadly, but there's, and we don't put people through a lot of things.